YouTube can throttle us.
They can suppress us.
But they can't stop a text message.
While diplomats shake hands in Swiss conference rooms, American F-35 fighter jets are landing in Portugal. And military aircraft are flooding European airspace. Iran's nuclear negotiators say that they want peace, but our military is positioning for something entirely different. What's really happening behind the scenes just might shock you. Now, this is not just foreign policy theater. This directly impacts your family's security. It impacts your wallet. If these negotiations collapse, we are looking at potential military action that could send gas prices through the roof and put American servicemen and women in harm's way. Meanwhile, Iranian regime supporters are literally begging Trump to remove their own government, exposing the brutal reality of life under the mullahs. The timing is everything here. Trump is simultaneously building military pressure while giving diplomacy one last chance. And this dual-track approach could either prevent a devastating war or prepare us for an inevitable one. And speaking of national security preparation, there is something critical every American needs to understand about our strategic vulnerabilities. Breaking news: early this year, the U.S. Department of Energy announced $2.7 billion in contracts to restore domestic uranium enrichment capabilities. This isn't just government spending, it's a declaration of intent. You see, America needs uranium. It needs domestic uranium, and it needs it right now. If you didn't know this, the United States consumes 56 million pounds of uranium annually, but we only produce 5% domestically, and the rest we import from Russia, from Kazakhstan, and other unstable regions. As tensions with Iran escalate and global supply chains face disruption, this dependency becomes a national security nightmare, and atomic minerals is positioned at the center of this uranium renaissance. Their Wyoming projects sit on some of America's richest uranium deposits, ready to fuel our nuclear reactors and reduce our dangerous foreign dependence. When geopolitical crises threaten our energy security, companies like Atomic Minerals become essential to American independence, because energy independence is not just smart policy, it is survival. And that's why you need to take a look at the full briefing that has been prepared just for Next News viewers. You'll find it linked down below. Now let's get back to these Iranian developments. This is what the mainstream media will not tell you. Those Iranian protesters holding signs begging Trump for help, they're not isolated voices. Social media is exploding with Iranians supporting American intervention against their own regime. The hashtag Iran massacre is trending as citizens are documenting brutal crackdowns. Now, this is not about American imperialism. This is about liberation. And the world is facing, Gunter Eagleman writes, a Berlin Wall moment, with the Iranian regime on the brink of an FAFO moment with President Trump. The experts are saying this is a pinnacle time period. We're watching history unfold right in front of our eyes. Trump is the peace president and will get it done. Remember, he is waving the big stick, saying, listen, let's negotiate. I don't want to have to use what's parked on your back door.
A Berlin Wall moment. History is watching us now. He writes, the Iranian regime finds itself at its weakest point since 1979. As such, the world has reached a pivotal crossroad, one that will define the course of history for generations. Chairman Crawford, how do you describe this moment?
Well, I think we have to put this in the context of the history of Iran. I mean, the last 50 years have been particularly problematic for the United States and for the Gulf state neighbors that surround Iran, but that's 50 years. They have a history of thousands of years, and only 50 of it has been spent in this type of posture. And what they're trying to do is continue as a regional and global hegemon, and they want nuclear capability to do it. So this is a defining moment. Are we going to allow for that, or are we going to stop it?
The administration says some sort of progress has to be made as we work our way into the weekend. Obviously, a lot of uncertainty, but we know this fourth round of talks is coming. So now, what do you anticipate from that?
Well, again, I don't really know. I don't want to get out in front of the administration on expectations, but I would say this: it's encouraging that they're talking. Mm-hmm. That's the encouraging part, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee any kind of an outcome. And so you see that the president is preparing to, not just talk the talk, but walk the walk.
Got it, Chairman. Appreciate you giving us your time today. Thank you very much, sir.
You bet. Thank you.
All right, John.
Right at the beginning of history. And following today's classified briefing on Iran, Secretary of State Marco Rubio to members of the Gang of Eight, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, this is serious and the administration has to make its case to the American people. Chuck Schumer.
This is serious and the administration has to make its case to the American people.
What did you hear? That's all he had to say. The classified briefing sets the stage for what becomes a rapidly escalating crisis, and Iran appears to be taking defensive economic measures. Iran has been rapidly loading an unusually high amount of oil onto tankers, possibly in preparation for a looming U.S. attack, according to Bloomberg. So while Iran secures its oil reserves, intelligence sources are revealing that a nuclear threat is driving the crisis. Here is Vice President Vance.
The principle is very simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. If they try to rebuild a nuclear weapon, that causes problems for us. And in fact, we've seen evidence that they have tried to do exactly that. So the president sending those negotiators to try to address that problem, as the president has said repeatedly, he wants to address that problem diplomatically, but of course the president has other options as well. On what we need to see from
And if you're a student of Bible prophecy, you know exactly what this could be setting up. Vance's nuclear evidence claim is now being backed by the Secretary of State with even stronger language.
Tomorrow, Steve and Jared will be there. I think they're on their way there now, actually. And the president was very clear last night that he always prefers diplomacy. But I want you to know that Iran poses a very grave threat to the United States and has for a very long time. They are in possession, first and foremost, after their nuclear program was obliterated, they were told not to try to restart it, and here they are. You can see them always trying to rebuild elements of it. They're not enriching right now, but they're trying to get to the point where they ultimately can. The other thing I would point you to, however, is that Iran possesses a very large number of ballistic missiles, particularly short-range ballistic missiles that threaten the United States and our bases in the region and our partners in the region. And all of our bases in the UAE, in Qatar, in Bahrain. And they also possess naval assets that threaten shipping and try to threaten the U.S. Navy. So I want everybody to understand that, and beyond just a nuclear program, they possess these conventional weapons that are solely designed to attack America and attack Americans if they so choose to do so.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio raising the stakes, giving a grave assessment. Being matched with serious military action, the Navy is already moving assets into position. USS Gerald Ford has left Crete, heading towards the eastern Mediterranean, port of Ceuta. Some of the visuals of the movement, just part of what Trump is calling the largest Middle East deployment in over 2 decades. President Trump has the largest deployment of U.S. air and naval assets in the Middle East in 23 years. This is his or else for Iran. USS Gerald Ford, USS Roosevelt, USS Bulkley, USS Mahan, USS Bainbridge, USS Winston Churchill, USS Canberra.
Or else. It's massive buildup of U.S. military in the Middle East with the largest deployment of air and naval assets to the region. Fighter jets are there, also deployed to the area, and the world's most advanced aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, is on the way there. So again, the largest that we've seen since the Iraq War. Axios, Air and Naval. Axios is reporting White House envoy Steve Witkoff says the Trump administration wants an Iran nuclear deal that will remain in effect indefinitely. So no date on this. They don't want to have to keep going back and back and back. No more bites at the apple for Iran. Secretary of State Marco Rubio not mincing words.
I think progress needs to be made. It would be good if progress was made on Thursday. And I would say that the Iranian insistence on not discussing ballistic missiles is a big, big problem. I'll leave it at that.
The massive military buildups created a critical deadline. Geneva talks that could determine if we go to war within days. Fox News correspondent Jen Griffin says that if the talks in Geneva fail, America will be at war within a week.
That the Iranian insistence on not discussing ballistic missiles is a big, big problem. I'll leave it at that.
Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin from D.C. Jennifer.
Harris, let's be very clear that if talks in Geneva fail today, the U.S. will likely be at war in the Middle East by next week. Most U.S. warships have pulled out to sea from the Fifth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain, and Fox News has learned that from an operational status, the U.S. base in Bahrain is in a state of mission-critical status, down to a few dozen Americans operating out of the U.S. Navy's Middle East headquarters. The Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier strike group has now left Suda Bay in Crete after a resupply stopover and is now heading east. At a typical speed, the carrier would be near the coast of Israel by Friday. The latest squadron of F-22 stealth fighter jets left Lakenheath Air Base in the UK on Tuesday, and for the first time ever are being based in Israel. Open-source satellite images show them lined up on the tarmac there. The buildup in the Middle East continues as negotiators are scheduled to resume talks at 5:30 p.m. Geneva time, with several U.S. Air Force heavy-lift aircraft in transit, including one C-5 Super Galaxy, the Air Force's largest strategic airlifter, designed by Lockheed Martin to carry immense cargo loads over intercontinental ranges. 13 C-17 Globemaster, and 2 KC-46A Pegasus used for air refueling. Here are the U.S. demands brought to Iran in Geneva: destroy all 3 nuclear sites, Fordo, Natanz, Isfahan, deliver all enriched uranium to the U.S., no sunset clauses, zero enrichment, but keep the Tehran reactor, minimal sanctions relief up front, more if Iran compliant. The U.S. negotiating paper was first reported by the Wall Street Journal.
First and foremost, after their nuclear program was obliterated, they were told not to try to restart it, and here they are.
So the clock is ticking. The high stakes in Geneva negotiations being reinforced by dramatic military preparations across the region. U.S. Navy Fifth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain reduced to mission-critical staffing ahead of potential Iran strikes, according to U.S. officials to Fox News. The Navy's shift to skeleton crews in Bahrain shows how imminent military action could in fact be. The USS Gerald R. Ford, the biggest U.S. aircraft carrier, has left the port near the Greek island of Crete on Thursday. The Ford's departure coincides with disappointing news from the negotiating table in Geneva. White House envoy Kushner and Witkoff were disappointed by what they heard from the Iranians in the morning negotiation session, per source with knowledge. Evening session ongoing, so it appears that the talks are deteriorating, which means, if Fox News is correct, we could be at war with Iran by next week. These failed morning talks with Iran have military analysts questioning the wisdom of Trump's limited strike strategy. The limited strike to pressure Iran to make a deal with the threat of more seems extremely problematic on so many levels, messaging that is now a sign of weakness in the negotiations. Sorry, that's the reality. I can't believe military commanders would recommend this. Tyler Rugaway writes that. White House using the New York Times to signal and pressure Iran. Trump considers targeted strike followed by a larger attack. He continues, Tyler says, as we've mentioned, very limited basing options for the duo for this due to threats and supposed airspace restriction. U.S. fighters based in Israel was a given. Interesting choice. U.S. Air Force F-22 fighter jets redeployed from UK will be stationed at the Avda Air Base in southern Israel, according to reports. Hat tip to EISN spotter, as I believe he broke the news first. At this moment, we know of the redeployment of 11 F-22s. Now, this is some of the visual imagery, it appears, of the airbase. It's hard to tell what we're actually looking at here. Despite the basing challenges, congressional Democrats are raising concerns after their classified briefing. Jim Hines, the ranking Democrat on House Intel, after the Rubio-Ratcliffe Gang of Eight briefing, says, I'm very concerned. Wars in the Middle East don't go well for presidents, for the country, and we have not heard articulated a single good reason for why now is the moment to launch another war. Democrat opposition is mounting, but Trump is doubling down with his strongest public statement yet on Iran, if you recall from the State of the Union address.
Negotiations with them, they want to make a deal, but we haven't heard those secret words. We will never have a nuclear weapon. My preference is to solve this problem through diplomacy. But one thing is certain, I will never allow the world's #1 sponsor of terror, which they are by far, to have a nuclear weapon. Can't let that happen. And no nation should ever doubt America's resolve. We have the most powerful military on earth. I rebuilt the military in my first term. We're going to continue to do so. Also, we just approved a $1 trillion budget. We have no choice. We have to be strong, because hopefully we will seldom have to use this great power that we built together. It's really called peace through strength, and it's been very, very effective.
So if there's ever been a time to join the raw feed list, text raw feed to 844-840-4963, because you guys have to be the first to know when something breaks, on this front especially. Trump's peace through strength message is getting backup from Senate Republicans who are issuing their own warnings. The Senate Republicans, Iran's leaders, know the consequences of pursuing nuclear weapons. They should not repeat past mistakes. Initial minutes from the Iraq War 2003. Now, after 23 years, the U.S. has the largest military buildup against Iran in the Middle East. Trump is weighing two options. One will be strikes on nuclear sites like Operation Midnight Hammer. Who can ever forget these visuals from Iraq? What do they call it? They call it shock and awe.
هو انفجار ثاني وانفجارات كبيرة وهائلة، وربما هذا ما أشار له.
These are visuals that we may soon see in Iran. The U.S. military buildup, it's as if they're gearing up for World War III. Another graphic, you can see the types of ships, the Abraham Lincoln, the Gerald Ford, the USS Frank Peterson, the Winston Churchill, the Sprutens, the Bainbridge, the Murphy, the Mahan, the Roosevelt, air defense, THAADs, MIM Patriot missiles. The list goes on. Thunderbolts, F-15E, F-35A, F-22 Raptors, EA-18GA, F-16s, KC-135 tankers, Cygnets, EA-11A BACNs, Sentry, AWACS, the Dragon Lady. The U-2 is up in the air. You can see the list. C5, C-17s. They have everything that they need. That stick is pretty big. The military buildup is being matched by Iran's own defensive preparations, which are apparently visible from space. Iran fortifying its military with nuclear sites as tensions grow. Some of the imagery. This is after the attacks, and this is now. So you have before. I'm sorry, and you have after the attacks, and you have now. After the attacks here on this site, and now. Satellite imagery confirms both sides are fortifying positions as analysts predict the timeline for the potential conflict. Say a potential week-long war with Iran is coming and the huge military buildup is going on. U.S. continues to build up forces in preparation for possible operation. F-35A Lightning II fighter jets from the 158th Fighter Wing of the U.S. Air Force arrived at Avda Air Base in the Azores, Portugal, supported by 2 KC-46A Pegasus aircrafts. More visuals on the movements. Advanced fighter jets positioning closer to Iran as some voices call for regime change rather than just military strikes. Here's one image from Iran. President Trump, please help. Calls for regime change highlight the stakes as diplomatic efforts make one final push. The U.S.-Iran nuclear talks, they resume as Trump ratchets up the war threats. Negotiations are underway in the Swiss city, days after Trump sought to build a case for war with Iran. And that's where we are. So the real revelation that Trump is not just threatening war, he's giving Iran's people hope while giving the regime one final ultimatum. Those F-35s in Portugal, they're not just military positioning, they're a promise. Either Iran's leadership negotiates in good faith or America acts decisively. And here's the bottom line. Trump is playing chess while Iran's mullahs are playing checkers. He's built maximum military pressure while keeping diplomatic channels wide open, forcing Iran into an impossible position. They either make real concessions on their nuclear program or face the consequences of American military superiority. The Iranian people are literally begging for freedom, and Trump does have the power to deliver it. And this is not about starting wars, it's about ending decades of Iranian terrorism and nuclear blackmail. The next few weeks will determine whether diplomacy can be achieved, what sanctions could not, or whether American force becomes necessary. So do you trust Trump to make the right call on Iran? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to check out the Next News merch shelf below this video for gear that shows your America First pride.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this. Share this now.